so I think I'm gonna preface this video by saying that this is gonna be a bit of a long rant. Rarely do I get to do these, and I think it's about time I did, especially with it being about something that is irreplaceable to me. I have completed so many anime over the years, but nothing has had me hooked as much as My Hero Academia. Looking back on it, with Marvel on the rise and then a superhero anime coming out, one could say that the timing was just perfect. A story that establishes so much more beyond the good guy beats the bad guy, but instead a compelling narrative about how a hero can reach out to the wrongdoers in a world where all men are not born equal. For years, this series has granted me with experiences and emotions that I would never think to come from something fictional. Nights like Dabi's reveal outtrending the presidential election, or Deku vs Todoroki really putting the series on the map, and even just being able to go to every movie with friends for years now. Fiction can connect people in so many unforeseen ways, and I think that's something joyous about the anime medium. Because of this series, I've made great friends, I've interacted with other content creators, and there isn't a day that goes by that I don't regret it. Realistically speaking though, there is always going to be plenty of critique, criticism, and sometimes just outright negativity as much as there are the highs. MHA out the gate already had to claw its way up the charts in order for people to really give it a chance, and it did succeed. Yet here we are in the final act, and the conversation around the series is no longer inviting as it used to be. This portion of the story is by far one of the most controversial shonen acts I have witnessed in my life. You'd think that coming off of almost a flawless Act 1 and Act 2 that we'd be hitting a three-piece win, and well, it's never been more split down the middle in terms of reception till now. Of course, I can only go off of what I see and witness, so by all means, please note that I do not speak for everybody in this video. This is purely my own views and experiences. The kickoff for Act 3 was by far one of the hypest times to be a fan of the series. Chapter 306 was an ambitious chapter just for the sole fact of announcing Deku was leaving UA, and with the final act announcement slapped on the same spread, it was pure bliss. Yet in this same chapter, this is when a lot of people unknowingly will begin to get off the ride. A common description to refer to the final portion of this series is that it's fast. Pacing wise, many have not been a fan, and Villain Hunt is the arc that really wore people out. There were multiple videos made on the arc full of elaborated upon critique and criticism, and all of it being fair. Even if I don't agree with a lot of things, one crucial thing to remember is that in the face of critique, it tends to come from some of the most invested fans, and with that in mind, it shouldn't be brushed over. For myself, I always like to hear people talk about the good and the bad because it broadens my perspective, and you cannot do that if you only hear the things you want. There is so much to be gained when you can listen to both sides of the table, and I listened to it all through and through. A lot of the critique wanted Deku's reflection and introspection. They wanted a deeper exploration into this post-PLW society, and we unfortunately didn't get as much as we'd like. However, that critique was met with a backlash of complaints calling many fans haters, and honestly, it got pretty messy within the community. It did not help that Season 5 was also going through its own rough patch either, and don't even get me started on the Vincent Chancer incident for the 100th time. Take all of this and then the many disappointments or dislikes of direction within the current ongoing final battle of the series, and it got to the point where I lost a lot of the drive to talk about the series out loud. Even when I like a chapter, it's hard to make conversation about it when everyone is kinda turned off, and I was painfully aware of that. In a way, I guess you can say that I felt isolated, and at the same time, how I felt was a bit of my own fault. I'm sure many of you are probably thinking to yourself that it was a mistake to get intertwined with the community in the first place, but I really didn't think that getting involved with people who share similar interests is that big of a deal. I ended up finding the perfect people to have discussions with about the series, and even though those discussions aren't really happening anymore, you kinda just don't move on once you found your clique, but that's a story for the final video. The anime community loves to exaggerate, and the MHA community was no different. Throughout the entire arc, I have seen so many takes of people saying Horikoshi doesn't want to be in Jump anymore, and anything in the ballpark that always makes me scratch my head. People love to make their complaints and frustrations humorous, and while I get it, I can never really get behind it when I still have so many things I look forward to within the series. Even after all the videos, even after all the back and forth discourse, I still love this series as much as the first day I watched episode 1. Yet the big question that I have been asked time and time again is why? Why continue to love a series when the author supposedly doesn't want to be here or in a former shell of himself and in the face of so much critique that many rally behind? I thought about it for quite some time, and I came up with two answers. The first one is gonna lead me on a bit of a tangent, and that being because I simply f***ing do. A simple answer, sure, but let me explain why there is a bit of a complication around this. We are in a time period of the most hypercritical thinking and analyzation of the anime and manga medium. You have to validate yourself around every corner when it comes to liking and disliking something, and it made me wonder, when did enjoying something become so f***ing complicated? If you like everything, you're treated like somebody who lacks critical thinking, and if you're critical, you run the risk of being labeled as somebody with bad takes for expressing your own views. You literally cannot win in this medium, but when everybody has different tastes and opinions, it shouldn't even be an issue. It also doesn't help when people love to project their frustrations onto somebody else's taste because said individual likes something that is apparently bad. You say you like Toga's conclusion, you're getting jumped. You say you like Iron Man, you're getting jumped. You say you like All for One, and everybody you love will be executed at the stake. Man, this manga stuff is serious. Already SeaWorld had a point. If I dislike something, I talk about it as thoroughly as I can and move along. I'm always going to like MHA because I realize it's the series that really is for my taste, and even through the critique and criticism, it remains that way. I say all of this while making sure to hear criticism, and even with having my own complaints, none of it is strong enough to make my enjoyment of the series waver. As for my second answer, this is going to lean more towards a genuine constructive response. I still believe that the conclusion of the major three plot lines within this story are going to be some of the best writing Hori can do. Toga and Ochako, the Todoroki family, and Deku's conclusion with Shigaraki are the three things I look forward to seeing wrap up the most because all of them reflect hero society. The world of MHA's Japanese hero society has been treated like its own character with the way it can affect children and adults. Its very structure right now has been destroyed, and how it manages to be rebuilt hinges on the conclusion of these plot lines. What happens to the pro hero ranking system, and what value will the title of number 1 have? If she isn't dead, how do you reintegrate somebody like Toga back into society who is a victim of her own surroundings and not treat her like she's less of a human being while respecting her own wishes? How do we improve society to make sure that there are less people who end up on a path similar to Gentle? How does the Public Safety Commission change from the ground up so that there will never be another Nagant and Hawks created ever again? What steps in society can be made so that heteromorphs like Spinner and Shoji are not discriminated against? What will a rebuilt society do to atone for the fact that children had to fight the battle that should have truly been meant for adults? What does it mean to save Tomura Shigaraki? Is there really a saving point for him? And if so, does it relate to the meaning of completing One for All? What will the title of hero mean in this post-final battle era, and how does society truly recognize the ones in their profession? The fact that I have all these questions show that I still have love for the series. I'm excited for the future, but me being excited doesn't mean I'm ignoring everything. To Star and Stripes, to the Ayama Trader plotline, to Bakugo's revival, and even the discrimination plotline, I know there are plenty of things that needed more work. I'm more than aware that the series has produced some chapters that many would consider streaks of back-to-back bad decisions, and I know that the arc has come up short in many different areas. Yet that's not gonna stop me from really enjoying this ride, and after everything I've said from what I still look forward to, and then acknowledging critique and criticism with my own in mind, I'm doing all I can as a fan. I think another major point that I need to include is the simple fact that I don't resonate with a lot of the criticism. It's one thing for me to understand and hear people out, but if I don't feel that way, then I can't simply get behind it. But if I were to say something I was excited about involving Deku, the only thing I am typically met with now is a bunch of complaints about what expectations he hasn't met for people, and I'm not upset that people have complaints, but rather the need to bring it to my attention every time I say something positive. I know I'm not the only one who still enjoys this series, but I wanted to get this out of my system because the conversation around the final act truly has changed a lot, but it's not all bad as it may seem. Whether you hate the story right now or love it, I just hope that everyone in the end is satisfied in some way, because once the ride is over, that is that, and we don't get a second time. When all is said and done, I plan to make one final video on this series, really laying everything to rest, and hopefully by that time, my love for the series will be carried all the way to the final chapter. That's pretty much it from me though. As always, thank you for watching, and make sure to leave all your thoughts in the comments section down below. Stay warm out there, and I will catch you all in the next video.